It's been a long-standing theory that Mrs. Flood in Doctor Who might be the boss. That's the boss that the Meep referenced back in The Star Beast.
Just wait till I tell the boss.
And that possibly Rogue referenced in the episode Rogue.
This job has so much paperwork ever since we got that new boss.
Since then, we haven't heard any more about the boss, but it must mean something. So the theory that Mrs. Flood is somehow the boss has been floating around for a while, ever since she turned up. But I've got a little bit of an addendum to that theory. What is she the boss of? I have an idea. Hello, welcome to Culture Filter. I am the Phil in Filter, and this is the channel where I like to talk about all the geeky pop culture I like, and because Doctor Who is on the air, that's pretty much all I'm talking about at the moment. So if you like Doctor Who lore videos, reviews, and news, then hit subscribe down below. Now, what we're talking about is Mrs. Flood being the boss, but what's she the boss of? I have an idea, and it's all brought about by the most recent episode, The Well. Mrs. Flood is appearing every episode this season, and her cameo in this episode was slightly different to the others. We've always seen her as the next door neighbour, or just a random bypasser, but here she had a much more specific role. She appeared on screen talking to Mo, one of the troopers that had gone down to the well at the end of the episode, in a kind of debrief. She was some kind of manager position, some kind of boss figure. And we never really found out who these troopers work for. Do they just work for their planet's government? Not necessarily. They could work for a multi-planet organisation or some kind of corporation. Now this brings in another theory I had before the episode aired about the well that didn't really materialise on screen but wasn't disproved either. And that was that the facility on the planet they go down to was owned and run by the Villengard Corporation. I came to this theory because of a logo that was on the door in the title reveal video. Yes, it does look like the logo to the TV series Gladiators. But assuming it has nothing to do with that, it also looks like a stylised V and G, i.e. Villengard. And that logo was indeed still present on that door within the episode itself. So that feels like a clear indication that the organisation that might run this mining facility might be Villengard. And therefore the troopers that were sent down might also work for Villengard, and therefore they appear to be reporting to Mrs. Flood. Therefore, is Mrs. Flood the boss of Villengard? Now this doesn't stop her also being someone else connected to the Doctor, we'll talk about that in a minute, but could she also be the owner, the CEO maybe, of this company? This company that the Doctor has run up against several times. In fact, as the War Doctor, he destroyed their weapons manufacturing facilities on Villengard. And maybe Mrs. Flood knows this. Maybe she knows that's going to happen in the company's future, and therefore she's taking some proactive steps to counter that. Now, some things to add a little bit of weight to this. We know that when writing Joy to the World, Stephen Moffat included Villengard in that. The briefcase was a Villengard product, a starseed that they were developing. So, and he mentioned in some of the behind the scenes interviews that he needed to see the season finale script from Russell because of something in his script, and we never found out what. But maybe that's where the link is. Maybe the link is the Villengard Corporation, and that explains why it's been brought back twice already in this series, despite not being mentioned for years before that. And we also know that at least through the Time Hotel, they have access to some kind of time travel abilities. They have time travelled in the past, they may well have more expansive time travel technology, vortex manipulators, or whatever as well. The other thing to consider is that Mrs. Flood in this scene isn't necessarily chronologically after the Mrs. Floods we have seen before. Perhaps this is very early on in her discovery of the Doctor. She seems to be unfamiliar with the name initially when Mo mentions it to her, but is familiar with the Vindicator, and the Vindicator is relevant to her. How? We'll have to find out. Let me know your theories below. But somehow the Vindicator is relevant to her. So maybe after this is when she then eventually ends up going back to Earth. Is her plot simple revenge for the Doctor one day destroying the company? Or is it a bit more complicated than that? Perhaps she is in fact trying to save Earth, and actually, despite being a sort of anti-hero type character, maybe she's actually going to end up assisting the Doctor. After all, humans are a potentially very large customer base for the Villengard Corporation, and I imagine they wouldn't want to lose it. But that is all assuming that she is just an ordinary CEO that then does a bit of time travelling in her plot. This theory of her being the CEO doesn't necessarily negate some of the other theories of who Mrs. Flood is. She could still be the Rani. I hate to mention it, but you know, she could be. Maybe she's the Rani. Maybe she, as the Rani, developed this corporation from scratch. Maybe she took it over at some point and is using it for her own experimental purposes. This is the first time where I thought, maybe this actually is the Rani, because the Rani's MO is science and experimentation no matter what the cost, no matter who it hurts. And Mrs. Flood never really fit into that until now. But here it kind of feels like she might be. The stuff with looking for the Vindicator, that kind of feels like it could be a Rani-esque thing. And, you know, if her experiments end up destroying the Earth, I don't think she would be that fussed about that. We also know that Russell T Davies in Doctor Who magazine has promised a lorry load of lore coming, and some of that would be about Gallifrey. I made a video about that, do check it out. So that could tie into that. If this is the Rani, it would make sense that we would get some Gallifreyan lore along with that as well. This is all just off the top of my head and based on the well. Let me know what you think about this theory in the comments down below. Do you think it has any possibility of being true? Have you got any alternative suggestions for Mrs. Flood's link into all of this? And do you think that that VG was indeed a logo for the Villengard Corporation? It's not the same logo we've seen before, but that doesn't mean anything. Companies change logo all the time. It still looks like a VG to me. Let me know in the comments down below. And do check out one of my other theory videos about season 2 by clicking on screen now.